Hey, Cyclone fans, it's Chris Williams, and welcome to the Wednesday pod here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. I'm taking a few days off, getting ready for the season to start, but we still have the Williams and Blum show with special guests jumping in to help us out. We couldn't do anything we do without our great sponsors, so let's thank our friends, the presenting sponsor of Williams and Blum, the Mechdyne Corporation. Check them out at MECHDYNE.com. Great friends, great people, and just an incredible company who I would encourage any of you to go and check out Mechdyne.com and see what they have for job openings. They love hiring Iowa Staters, engineers, marketing people, desk jobs, IT. They do it all over at Mechdyne. They are located in Marshalltown with offices all over the world. So we thank them for bringing you Williams and Blum here in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. But it takes all sorts of great sponsors to get us through the season, to keep free content here, and I want to thank them all for you right now. And then we'll get to today's show. Of course, Gravitate Co-working, gravitatecoworking.com for all of your co-working needs. Longtime sponsor of ours, as is Hopewood. Just heard from a listener the other day that Hopewood took care of him and his family with their estate and life insurance and all of that good stuff. She does the will planning. That's what she's big at. Will in a day. HopewoodJD.com. Also want to thank our friends at the Iowa State University Foundation. Go to MoveWhatMatters.com today. Iowa Clinic Men's Center, Game Day Men's Health, and of course Kelderman Manufacturing, my friend Jeff Kelderman. With that, let's go to today's show. Talking some Iowa State football, Iowa State basketball as we are getting ready for the 2024 Cyclone Athletics season. We'll have more right here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network.
My name is Joseph Hurst. I live in Ankeny, Iowa, and I'm a part of the PMBA program. I currently work as the Director of Sales at Stony Creek Hotels in Johnston, Iowa, and I chose the Iowa State MBA program because it just made perfect sense. About 2 years ago, I started this wonderful program, and I couldn't imagine not having done it. What has helped the most balance work, life, school has been the people I'm in class with. It's great to go through questions, problems, study for tests, and it just makes the whole class so much easier. As a working professional thinking about doing an MBA program, I get night classes aren't everybody's dream. I get after a long day of work, you may not want to go do more, but it's worth it. You're gonna learn a lot, not just from the professors in the program, but from the other students. They come from all walks of life. They are from different age groups, they're from different companies, they're from all kinds of different backgrounds, they've got all kinds of different stories. And after 2 years, I've made some of the best friends I've ever made, learned the most I've ever learned, and I can't imagine what we're gonna do after we're done.
Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit TerraplexAg.com.
All right, what is up, everybody? I'm Chris Williams here with Brent Blum for today's episode of Williams and Blum from the Wild Rose Casino Studios.
Yeah, buddy.
I don't have a good Williams impression off the top of my head. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing okay. I've had this little sinus thing. So people remember from doing the Jackie thing, podcast with her, which was a lot of fun last week. I've had this sinus infection thing. My nose is more bulbous than usual. But I'm hanging in there. Had a trip to Green Bay with my parents. Dad had never been there. Huge Packers fan. Leroy Butler singled him out to thank him as a former teacher. It was a very touching moment, even though I still despise the Packers.
Yeah, I saw that. That had to have been super cool. What's Lambeau like?
It's really neat. It's really neat. And Green Bay is such a cool little small town, small city. It's a lot of charm, a lot of, I keep thinking of the days though that, Randy Moss got his most disgusting display by the mock moon because Packers fans famously moon. I was trying to imagine the Vikings buses being there around Lambeau Field and them getting mooned frequently. It kind of kept me grounded during the trip.
You imagine if social media was real prevalent during that?
Oh, God, there'd be videos of it all the time. All right, it's time to moon them all.
That would probably be one of the longer running like clips if that had happened in anything.
Yeah, I suppose some might be censored. You'd have to figure out where to put it. But yeah, I mean, great rivalries. I have a great deal of respect. I mean, it's cool to visit a place like that. But like I said, doesn't change anything about my allegiances.
Absolutely. So yeah,
Recommended,
we're
though.
we're
Yeah.
filling in today. As you guys know, August super busy month getting stuff ready for the season. So we gave Chris and Brent the week off. I think 2 episodes that we're filling in for this one, and then I think it's Mahoney and Woody for the other one.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Yeah. But yeah, appreciate y'all for tuning in, listening to us. Rob, have you been watching the Olympics at all?
I've been watching some selectively. I'm watching all the basketball. Watched a little beach volleyball, rugby. I've been impressed with some of the women's rugby I've watched.
So I'm not typically an Olympics watcher. They took out hockey, and it really soured me on all of the events. So this year,
What do
I've
you mean they
watched
took out? What do you mean they took out hockey? They have field hockey and they have ice hockey in the Winter Olympics.
Field hockey is not hockey.
They have ice
It is
hockey in the
not as
Winter
nice to watch. It is
They didn't
not.
they didn't take hockey out of the Summer Olympics. It's not a part of the Summer Olympics.
I got that. Ice hockey is coming back to the Olympics, back to the Winter
I
Olympics.
can't believe it was ever. That's ridiculous. The Olympics, there's a lot of BS.
That's what soured me on it. But I've watched some basketball. I regret I didn't watch skateboarding yesterday. I would have really wanted to watch that, and I do want to catch a rugby. Is there rugby still going?
Oh yeah, it's still going on. It's going to be going on for days.
Good.
U.S. Brazil was very entertaining. France looked tough. I mean, there's a lot of good teams out there. For France, the home team it's done pretty well in the first few days. But a lot of swimming medals out there to get. We'll see how the men's and women's basketball teams hold up. But
I haven't watched a men's
really
game
impressive
live
win
yet.
by the men over Serbia, even though Tyrese and my buddy Jason Tatum didn't play.
Can you explain that to me? Because I know they play these showcase games. Does Steve Kerr not know how to use Tyrese? Is that inaccurate? That's what I've been seeing. But I feel like if you're playing that first Olympics game, you're actually there on the stage, on the court that you're going to play on. Don't you want to get as much run out of everyone as you can?
Yeah, I would think so. But the weird thing is, he said he feels like he's an idiot for not playing Tatum. As a Celtics fan, I know how, he's a good teammate, but he doesn't like, I think, being benched an entire game. But great effort, though. Serbia's got some guys, as we know, beyond Jokic, and they just took it to him. So Tyrese will get in there. I'm sure he'll make some plays. If not,
a little
he'll be
nugget.
a great cheerleader like he was when he got injured in that forgettable season before he went to the NBA.
I don't know if you guys, my buddy Nick Yeoman, it's Yeoman is his Twitter name. I saw this at like 1 a.m. trying to go to bed last night. But Tyrese was in the background at like the women's tennis match or something, just going crazy for Team USA. I thought that was really cool. I would have retweeted it at the time. I'll post it, or I'll share that in a few minutes here. It might be yesterday by the time you're listening to this, but
since we're going over some news, AJ Klein is going to wrap up his decade-plus NFL career. Got called back last season. Kind of cool. What a great Cyclone. Man, his pick sixes were legendary. Linebacker, when he was teamed with Jake Knott. It wasn't just them. I mean, that was a good linebacking core. That's a special era. So give salute to AJ because heck of a Cyclone and had a heck of an NBA. Thinking of basketball, NFL career.
Obviously, we're going to preview a little bit about Iowa State Football Media Day coming up and the stuff that we're kind of excited about and stuff that we're probably more pessimistic about. And I'm excited to get down there Friday morning. Obviously, we got Knoxville Nationals going on. I'll be in both places every day, essentially. So it's going to be a busy few days here, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Rob, do you want to start? Do you want to go through this position by position, or do you want to highlight the aspects of it that stick out to you the most first?
I want to go macro to micro. First of all, returning 85% of its production, Iowa State. No one else returns more. You got the Big 12 freshman, offensive freshman of the year quarterback, Rocco Becht, we saw him at his camp. He continues to camp. I mean, he's doing all the right things off the field, well, quote unquote, off the Iowa State field. I think he could have a huge year. And then you bring in all the top targets back from Jalen Knoll to Jaden Higgins. You bring in Isaiah Alston, who could be a big play guy. You've got the North Dakota State transfer. You got if Daniel Jackson stays healthy for once. I mean, Ben Bramer, Steve-O can make some plays. I mean, you've just got a wealth of talent there. And I think that, again, Iowa State is going to be a lethal offense in the passing game. And it remains to be seen. I guess we'll go strength concern, whether the running game can get going again, because a lot of Thomas stuff was done in the Snowmageddon game, Snowpocalypse again, whatever you want to call it. But we know how fast he is. We know what kind of skills he has. And the offensive line, I think, was darn good at pass protection, opened up holes. I think having an inexperienced backfield led to some of the issues in the run game. So I think if you can get a somewhat consistent run game, I would say it's going to be a top 3 or 4 Big 12 offense. And, that's a pretty good way to start the season, especially when you look at how the schedule shapes up. Iowa State's toughest games probably are the final 2 at Utah and against K-State at home. Not that there aren't tough ones. At West Virginia is fairly early, and quote unquote at Kansas at Arrowhead. I think that'll be a lot of fun. As
we say to
Texas
Tech. Texas Tech could be 7-1, 6-2, or 8-0.
Yeah, because their schedule sets up nicely too, and I think they're underrated. I think the Red Raiders, when you got a great running back and you got an experienced quarterback coming back, I think that'll be, and McGuire's a heck of a coach. I think that'll be a marquee game, but you get them at home. So I think it could set up for the Cyclones to be on a great run down the stretch. And we know what the defense can do. You're great on the back end. You've got a ton of experience at the other levels too. Just can you get more pass rush and all of that? But I'm just really hyped about that returning production because it's all across the board except for place kicker. And, they've done a pretty good job filling in with guys from Amivas to Contreras in recent years. So you hope that, however, they can figure that this season, it's going to be just as good.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go off of the run blocking aspect that you talked about, I think the number one comment I get over the offseason, if you say anything about the offensive line, and I got this advice before I took the job that I'm in right now, is just be careful what you say about the offensive line in the offseason, because if you say anything good, there's going to be some doubters there. There's going to be some people that I'll wait to see it to believe it. And there are games where they looked really, really good last year.
Keep the receipts. Right? Yeah, they're going to keep the receipts.
Yeah, absolutely. It was night and day for some games compared to others. I reference Baylor, BYU as the games that not including the snow game, because you saw how hard it was to tackle in that game, point blank. But do you think the offensive line, how big of a step do they need to take to have that run game be a consistent threat and a consistent product of this offense?
I think they need to take a huge step, but they're still young in Brian Clanton's tenure. And when you bring back a guy like Jared Hufford, with his experience, you bring in transfers, Travis, I'm just trying to imagine how much muscle they're going to put on that 6'9" frame. Boniface got a lot of experience at center last year. You brought in the Wisconsin transfer at center or guard. You got a lot of flexibility there and a lot of experience. And yeah, I know Daryl Simmons, but arguably Daryl Simmons really regressed throughout his Cyclone career. No knock on Daryl. I know a hardworking guy and all that. And he'll be playing for a Big 12 rival. But James Neal, the way he came on after looking really shaky, I think Clanton's track record speaks for itself. They're going to be mean. They're going to be nasty. They're going to be violent.
Violent, yeah.
And try to be versatile. And we'll see if that'll continue to pay off. But the consistency has to be there. And we have not seen consistency there maybe any time in the last several years. And we've seen more consistency at times, like the COVID year, the Fiesta Bowl year. But there were still games where Brees Hall had a hard time getting it going. David Montgomery had a hard time. Clanton's track record, the way he coaches, what he demands, and the returning experience, you got to feel optimistic about it, but you can't be that optimistic because track record shows it could rush for 180, 200 yards one game and rush for -4 the next. Last season, it was so wildly fluctuating. So it needs to approach consistency there. But I really think, I think that passing game's good enough that if the running game is shut down and teams load the box, just throw it all over the place all the time. And Rocco will get 550 yards and 5 touchdowns. I'm convinced the passing offense can be that good for Iowa State this year. We'll see. That's my biggest optimism for the team, actually, just how good this passing offense can be.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at Jaden Higgins in his year last year and what he was able to do in the last 6 games, and then do this for me if you're bullish on Rob's take there not being as true as you want to think it is. Go watch that bowl game and watch Jaden Higgins just body the guy they continuously put on him. I don't know if he technically mossed him more than 3 times or whatever. I'm trying to remember, but he had his number. Every target to Jaden was almost 100% that's getting caught, and it was like 45 yards down the field. They can find anything like that, a mismatch like that, anywhere along the way this year. Just look out for Higgins to have a massive game like he did that night.
Yeah, and Noel does all that. I think Bramer's capable of doing it. I think, again, Jackson, if healthy, is just such a big and strong target. You know, you don't think 6'2", whatever, 220, but so experienced. Again, knock on wood, he stays healthy. And Isaiah Alston's a game changer. Just if you just run a few plays for him to stretch the field, and I think they're really loaded. You know, Benny Nagoye came on, had a big catch in that bowl game, and he's got all the tools. So again, I trust the offensive line to pass block. We'll see how consistent they can get in the run blocking, but there's a lot of reasons to feel like Iowa State's offense would be really explosive, and we know what the defense is going to be just about year in and year out. Although hearing the real Williams and Blum, there are the rumblings, and I know we've heard it too, that there could be a few more situations where we're not just going 3-3-5 stack, we're going 4 down linemen on defense. And I think given the configuration of the team, that might be nice to have situationally at least. And, we'll see how that goes. But, the 3-3-5 stack, a lot of people have done it. A lot of people have adapted to it. And we'll see how John Haycock adapts and puts in new wrinkles this year, because he's got the tools, again, especially on the back end and the interior of the defensive line, to really have a special defense again this year as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what we hear about that Friday. Aren't you? The 4 down linemen and what they're looking at running from there. Does that, if you run it more than 50% of the time, do you consider yourself a 4-3? That's what, and you're more football savvy in that aspect of things. I was always the video game player that didn't know how to play defense. I'd blitz every play, and new college football game came out and I haven't gotten to play a ton, but I'm just blitzing every play the same as I used to. So, and it still doesn't work on Heisman, at least.
It works a little bit more in video games than it does in real life. I remember those days as well. I think, that will be interesting because, Coach Haycock has shown an ability to innovate and then not only that, maintain, a certain standard of excellence. But we also hear players' formations plays, right? And you might as well players' schemes as well. Players precede the schemes. When you got J.R. Singleton, you got Joey Peterson experience, you got Dom Orange experience, you got Tyler and Udom's experience, and you bring in other guys on the defensive front that can do a lot of things. Same, I mean, just a lot of talent up there. And, you got McLaughlin back at linebacker. You lose Gary Vaughn, but you got a lot of experience back there. And then we know what the back end is like, one of the best in the Big 12, if not one of the best in the country. If Jontez Williams can hold up, and if Miles Purchase is the Miles Purchase he's shown himself that he can be. much of his career. I think John Haycock's always got something up his sleeve. I don't know how. I don't think he's going to give anything away, but I'm sure he's been brainstorming along with all the other defensive coaches ways to maximize the potential for this defense to really complement the offense nicely and get off the field quickly.
Yeah, and I think I said 4-3 instead of 4-2-5, but either thing could suffice. It's semantics to a point. One guy on the defense that, and he might not get a ton of run this year. I think he'll get some at the very least. And this goes back to being the recruiting nerd and writing about him in high school, but Cooper Ebel. I remember we just started doing like the player of the week part of what all the commits did on Friday night. The morning before the game starts, I'd usually sit down and write it, or some of them that night if the stats were there, if something was up. And Cooper won it like, I think 4 of the first 6 weeks we did it. And he was just everywhere. He'd get interceptions. He was the team's punter. He was the team's kicker. He was their quarterback. He was their star defensive player. Like, the kid was just all over the field. I can't wait to see how Iowa State utilizes that athleticism. I understand he was playing at a smaller school and you're a D1 athlete there and you're probably going to stick out no matter where you're at. But it is a guy that has played a lot of different positions and has a lot of different body movements that you're not just going through high school learning how to play one position. So I'm excited to see. I'm not anticipating they move him to wide receiver or something. But I'm excited to see how the versatility at his position will help this defense.
Yeah, and I mean, Jamison Patton's another younger guy how big of a jump does he make in year 2? I think he really shined in moments. He was exposed in moments too, but he's a true freshman, but in difficult situations. I mean, his ball skills are really good. His speed's good. I mean, if he maximizes his potential, he's going to be one heck of a defensive back for Iowa State from this season to the end. And a lot of players to be excited about, but I'm interested to see how he does fits into that mix on the back end as well. I mean, a Darian Porter, a guy that's been in the program forever, special team star. If he is a very solid cornerback this year, watch out, because with his wingspan and his speed, that makes that back end that much better.
Well, and we saw a number of guys come in and try to fill in those spots when someone was hurt, no matter who it may have been. And we saw a number of guys get burned. And I think there's 2 types of guys that get burned, and some of them figure out that gives them that, okay, so here's what it looked like when I got beat really bad. This is where I need to take a step and cut off this route or whatever it may be. It's hard to relate in hockey terms like I'd be used to doing. But it's either that or you just continue to get burned. And I don't think there's a lot of guys on this roster that are the type to just continue to get burned. I think we see guys take steps and look at those, moments, learning opportunities to where hopefully that translates into them taking that step and getting better.
Well, Drew Surgis is a prime example of that throughout last season. I thought, his rise up from preferred walk-on, I believe, that gets out there and it's kind of like, whoa, it looks like, and has a couple of rough moments, but then has some wow moments late in the season, and to see that development. That's what this program, we say it ad nauseum, what it's built on. You get a handful of really good transfers, sometimes mid-major, sometimes from bigger schools that they had smaller roles too. But how are you building up that talent? And the defensive side of the ball has done really well. Offensive line is the one that needs to take that big step this year that it hasn't always taken, at least collectively in the past. And, again, it's good. The Big 12, and I know the real Williams and Blum, I'll just call them that when we're doing this. The real Williams and Blum talked about it nonstop too, just how you look at 2 through 10, and you could really make a case for any one of those teams having a pretty good shot to decent shot of getting in the title game. And it's no gimme that Utah's going to either. Who knows when you had a Cam Rising missing an entire season because of the injury in the bowl game the previous year, when you had the injuries to their other top players, that's people. Sometimes injuries happen in bunches, and sometimes people become injury prone. So it's no guarantee that all those guys are healthy and producing this year. Now, at the same time, they're also a highly talented team, a great coach team, with Kyle Whittingham, and we know his track record. So I'd say they're somewhat prohibitive favorites, and you probably go K-State, and I know varied people. Oklahoma State returns not that much less production than Iowa State, and be interesting to see what they can do because they were such a Jekyll and Hyde team last season, but put it together, win-loss wise. But I think Iowa State's going to be right in that mix. It's just a matter of, do you take care of business in some of the games? Do you keep the turnover margin on the plus side? I think with the ball hawking abilities of your Jeremiah Coopers and Bo Friedlers and even some of the linebackers like McLaughlin, we've seen Malik Verdone. If he stays healthy, he's going to get some picks. I like Iowa State's chances to do that, but again, you never know, because I don't think the talent of the 2022 team and the 2023 team were a gulf apart. I think it was pretty close, and you went from 4-8 to 7-5, and 4-8 was you were disastrous in the margins. 7-5 was you were pretty good to good, pretty good to good. You could be good to great this season. Could be very special, but that's asking a lot. But again, with the returning production, the explosiveness in the pass game, the quality of the defensive players, I think there's just a massive amount to be optimistic about.
So we could lead into this around Big 12 teams and what you're interested in. Texas Tech, I know I brought up earlier, they have this tremendously advantageous first 2/3 of the schedule. I think Iowa State is the toughest team by far. They play in the first 8 games of the year, and I think Iowa State's their 8th. Rob's giving me the face that he's looking it up. I got my magazine on the ground over there. I don't want to get off camera. Go double check.
Yeah, I wrote something about it. I think the Cyclones might be the first team they'll face that had a winning record last season.
Oh, yeah, even better.
Correct me if I'm wrong. People can correct me, but it's pretty close to that. First or second team. So yeah, and again, Tech's got money. Tech's got one of the best backs in Taj Brooks.
And by all accounts,
still, I think
everyone I talk to says
Yeah.
Joey McGuire is this really good recruiter and for a guy that hasn't had the fastest start of a young head coach, especially in his first year, they've never wavered from him in Lubbock, at least from the people I talk to, the people I hear from. Like there's a lot of
I think the players really dig him, and and I mean, again, you've got a running back the quality of Brooks, and you've got others in that backfield as well, and they've got a lot of talent. Again, the question mark is the defensive side of the ball, but again, they can be rolling in, and I remember thinking it could very well be 7-1. They got one fairly tough one in there. But they could be rolling in. Iowa State could be in the same position, depending on how the Iowa game goes. And that could be kind of a big marquee game in Week 8, which haven't seen many marquee games between Texas Tech and Iowa State, but it could certainly be one.
We haven't seen a lot of normal games between Texas Tech and Iowa State. That series in Oklahoma State, to me, growing up, was always the weird. More so Oklahoma State for sure, but there's never been a normal Iowa State Texas Tech game. I don't think go back and look at the Patrick Mahomes 66-10 one. There's nothing normal about that, even at the time.
Well, how about the whatever 85-yard field goal they hit to win that game in Lubbock a few years ago?
Oh.
How about during the season where the margins were a disaster? You run the same play 3 consecutive times on 2 consecutive possessions from the 2-yard line and don't get any points, and you lose 14-13 while gaining them by like 280 yards. I mean, there's weird stuff going on in this series.
That was the phantom touchdown in Morgantown, right? That was guy's foot never hit the ground in the end zone. The same year, different road game.
Yeah. There's a lot of angst to go along with that season. But Yeah, I mean, they're right there. And what were they picked? Preseason, like 9th, 8th. I'm trying to
Yeah,
think.
it's funny because
Um,
it feels like the
I mean,
preseason.
West Virginia had a great season. They bring a lot back. Good quarterback in Green, and good defense, especially defensive line. Oh, and they're picked what, 8th? Iowa State 7th by the media. So I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room in there if teams get it rolling the right way. That again, any teams in that 2 to 10 spot, and Iowa State's squarely in there, it have a really good shot to be playing for a Big 12 title. So that's one thing that's really exciting about the whole season. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch Big 12 football, not just Iowa State football. Given the amount of, I don't want to say parity, but I think really good, solid teams that aren't that far away from having the potential to be borderline great teams.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what UCF is this year and what they're able to do. I think they have the worst uniforms in the Big 12 by far. It's not even close. They're god awful. There's no creativity there. Ankeny Centennial High School had cooler uniforms the first year they fielded sports teams. Um, I had to say that. I had to say that. It's been nagging at me, Rob. I had to get that out. Sorry. KJ Jefferson, I'm
Okay.
excited to see what he does at quarterback for them, and what he's able to put together. I'm damn pumped to watch Avery Johnson play. I think his scrambling ability is really up there, and we've seen what scrambling quarterbacks have been able to do in college football if you put them around a team that is willing to use them. Is K-State willing to use him to that extent, to that fun extent, to me, that Johnny football esque variety? You guys know the parts of that. Baker Mayfield, same thing. I'm not trying to compare him to those two guys. Can they use him like that, and can they use him correctly? Is going to be a big question mark going into things. And then Arizona is a big question mark too. I haven't listened to Kicking It yet. They had Jason Shear on from I think Arizona's 247 site, but I don't know what to think about Arizona. There's nothing that tells me from the outside looking in that this is going to be a world beating, too deep, great football team. I think they lost too much in the transfer portal over the offseason. There's been a lot of turnover. Usually that doesn't lead to success, but we're also in a different era of college football where guys can transfer and not sit out a year, and you can get solid guys in the portal. And I'm not trying to say you can't. It's just really tough to bring all that together and have the chemistry mesh to go forward rather than side by side for a bit before you go up.
Yeah, I mean, we know they were really good last year, but you lose your head coach, you lose that many people. You bring a lot in, you have some returning talent. I think they'll be pretty good. I think the Wildcats will be pretty good. But as we see with new teams in the league, some teams that have been accustomed to being pretty good in their conferences, and granted the Pac-12 is not the American like Cincinnati and all that, but Cincinnati was competitive in most of its games last season, but still only won 3 games. So I mean, I don't think that's an Arizona situation. I think Arizona's a bowl eligible type team that has the potential to be more, but also has the potential to be a little bit less. It's an interesting one. And granted, I would say to play all these teams. Colorado, what does Shedeur Sanders do? They got all the flash. They got all the prime time. They got all this. But again, last year, flashed early, fizzled completely. I mean, there's no guarantee that's not going to be the case again. I know they get a lot of transfers and all that, and Arizona State's a big question mark too. But again, it's just a really intriguing year, a fun year. Just BYU bounced back a little bit. I mean, they had their moments last year where they played well, and Ohio State really spanked them there in Provo, which they're not used to. It got used to it a little bit more last season, first season, the Big 12 baptism by fire. But I think you could look at Baylor with Dave Aranda calling plays again and calling a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback. I mean, I think there's intrigue around every team, and I think that's what makes the Big 12 a really fun league to watch this year, because there are no teams I think that are entrenched in any spot. You could look at the bottom 4 teams and say, yeah, they'll probably be the bottom 4 teams, but they've got enough talent, some of those teams, and especially via the transfer portal, that they could pop up and be top half teams. I don't know if all of them can't, but I mean, Baylor's done it before. They've gone from great to low and low to great. And it'll be interesting to see how some of those teams perform as well. It's just exciting. Like I said, media days 1, 2, 3, 4 days away. It'll be nice to be out there. Hopefully it's not too windy, so the tents start rattling and we think they're going to fall on us. But it'll be fun to talk
I'm
to
more
the
worried about
guys.
temperature. You're
Just
worried about the
know that-
wind?
Yeah,
just don't wanna
I
be
mean,
roasted.
they're battleless. They do a nice job of securing them, but sometimes it gets a little bit like you feel like there's going to collapse on you there. But it's always exciting because training camp will have started a day before, and guys are a couple days before, so it's football season finally. I know it's Knoxville National season too.
It's
as
day
well,
after
and
national. Day
starting
after
out
nationals.
with-
I sit down under a blanket and I'm just tired. I'm exhausted, and I read Phil Steele, and I try to read as much cover to cover as I can about the Big 12 in the front part of the magazine and get the real national stuff on it because that means the season is going to be here. And then I compare it to the stuff that I'm thinking and what I want to think about everything going in. Then it's really run and gun of the season. Then you're like 8 days from the Ireland game and you're really there.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the fans are as excited about getting rolling as we are. I assume they are. I know ticket sales have been good, and don't sleep on North Dakota though, man. They've Iowa State's track record against Valley teams early in the season is not always the best. Whether they were Valley teams at the time or are now Valley teams, we know how they've struggled against UNI at times. North Dakota's been a solid FCS program, made the playoffs last season again. It's always an adventure week one. We'll see how it goes.
Now you saw how Iowa State men's basketball did against Lindenwood last year. I think it goes to offer that Iowa State's athletic programs are typically pretty good against schools with good hockey programs, with elite hockey programs.
That's true. I'm just saying
Play the stats.
The North Dakota, the Fighting Hawks could have some could have some good moments, but I think depth and talent will win out. But interesting early, then you go to Iowa, and then you get a first of 2 bye weeks, and then Arkansas State. So again, I think it sets up well. Iowa State's going to have a really good idea of what their identity is, what they need to shore up, what they need to fix, if anything, after the first 2 weeks, and then we're full speed ahead from there, and hopefully into a very exciting season that they're playing meaningful games in November.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot wait to get there. Brent, thanks for joining us. Go get some more money, get another kicker down here. I'm going to go to a late model race. I know the Knoxville Nationals are starting, but it's late model season. It always is, Chris. So thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate everyone at Cody Road, at Mechdyne, Wild Rose, and absolutely cannot wait to get started with coverage this season and everything that comes with the fantastic month of August in Iowa. So thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it.